Hello and welcome back to another Uxcel webinar. My name is Sofia and I'm the community manager here and your host for today's session. For those who are joining us for the first time, would like to let you know that this is a part of our free webinar series where every single month we bring the best design experts from all around the world to share their experience, expertise, and real life journeys in UX. We do these live so that you get the chance to talk to them directly and to ask them any questions that you might have. So, help us get to know you a little bit better before that. Tell us your name. I'm seeing a few about you already in the comments. So, hello once again. As always, we reserve the last 15 minutes of the session for the Q&A, but you are free to post your questions for our guest today anytime before that, and we will address it in that time slot. And if you want to catch some of our past episodes, you can do it on YouTube, on our YouTube channel in the lives section. That being said, today we will be talking about breaking into UX. And for that occasion, we've joined by our special guest, Denise, who will share her story about transitioning from her career 12 years in advertising to a full-time role as a UX content writer in less than a year without any formal education. So I'm very, very excited about this talk today because in the next hour, you will hear everything she did, every single step she did to secure the position. So if you're looking for, a tested roadmap to breaking into UX, stay with us, enjoy it. And let's jump straight in. Denise, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. How are you doing?
Good, Sophia. How are you? It's a pleasure to be here.
Doing well, thank you. So, I like to keep the intros very short. And we already know you've been in advertising for 12 years. And, it's a quite a long time. You probably grew accustomed to it. It was your comfort zone. But somehow there was a defining moment there that made you realize that maybe UX writing could be your next career move. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so like you said, I spent a long time in advertising, honing my writing skills and learning all other sort of skills like strategic thinking. Well, working with different industries and different kinds of businesses allowed me to gain all of these different kind of skills. But it came to a point where I kind of looked around and noticed that there was something that was lacking in my advertising experience, and that was empathy. Advertising is pretty much about sales. So while I could put to good use all of these skills that I had, I felt like something was missing. And that's where a friend of my husband, actually, she was working as a UX writer, and she started telling me about this world. And what really drew me to UX was how user-centered it was, like how much the focus was on what the user needs and how we can fulfill those needs, right? And that actually genuinely excited me. Like my main passion is writing, and so the idea of putting my words to good use, not just for selling a product, but to guide someone that needs help to achieve a goal, that actually really excited me and motivated me to start looking into UX writing.
That's really wonderful. A noble cause, right? A noble motive. So I guess that when you started exploring it and you decided, okay, maybe this is something that I should do. Can you tell us how you made the career switch, and did you have any, as we said, it becomes your comfort zone, your job. So doing such a big move in your career probably must have felt maybe fear, like maybe you had some fear about it or maybe doubt. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie, it was a scary decision. And it did take me quite a long time to make it. Like, I started toying with the idea of switching careers maybe around 2020, 2021, maybe. And I made the career switch in 2023. So it took me quite a while to come to terms with the idea of throwing away 12
Mhm.
years of experience. But then I came across a concept that really, really changed my way of thinking. And it's the concept of the sunk cost fallacy. And it's an idea that explains our tendency to stick to something if we've already committed to it. We've already committed time and we've already committed effort. You're gonna kind of want to keep on pushing on, even though there's somewhere in the back of your mind where you know that the best idea is actually to give up, you know? And as soon as I came across this concept, it just became so clear to me I'm wasting time,
Hmm.
literally, because the decision to want to switch careers was already there. And I had already toyed with where can I move that I can use the skills that I already have and not waste everything away, put them to use in something else. UX writing was something that was really getting my attention. And so I realized that I could keep trying, maybe working at a different advertising agency, maybe going freelance, maybe all of these different options. Um, but that would be just wasting more time. And it just became a point of pushing those doubts aside and just taking a leap of faith on myself, just trusting that I dedicated 12 years to get to the point where I am and I can do it again. It's not like I'm wasting everything I've experienced so far.
Yeah.
There are so many things that I can still put to use, and that helped me calm those fears, and that helped me like realize I could give it a shot.
And once you were set on this decision, what were the first steps you took?
Well, really, I jumped in. I maybe read a couple books about UX design and UX writing. But as soon as I saw a job posting for a freelance position, I applied for it. And I didn't get picked at first because there were other people applying for that position that had more experience than me. But as soon as another position opened up, the team leads, Eliana Campos and Diana Tanner, they really took a chance on me and they said, you know what, she has potential and she is eager to learn. And they actually gave me an opportunity, and that gave me the chance to learn while doing the job.
Mhm.
I had to figure out things along the way. I was given this position without much prior knowledge, just like basic copywriting knowledge and a very theoretical knowledge of UX, but no experience really in it. And that's why I'm really thankful that these people took a chance on me. And the first step was really that, taking that leap of faith that made us cross paths and and just have confidence in my ability to learn. And as soon as it happened, as soon as I joined the Guayaquil as a freelancer, they gave me access to Uxcel, and
Mhm.
I decided to take advantage of that as fast as I could because I knew I needed to learn on the fly, really.
Yeah. Um, so how did those first few months go? How did you make yourself comfortable in the new position? And how did you maybe make yourself stand out or affirm that, you are indeed capable of learning, relearning, and maybe even translating some of the skills that you already have
Mhm.
into the new position?
So, well, I mean, the first few weeks were really confusing. There's a lot of new terms being thrown around, and when you're working in sprints, everything happens so fast
Yeah.
that I really had to rely on my team. And I had an amazing first team. Like, they really took me in and they really became great mentors for me. People like William Cochea, he was my design partner. he was really a great mentor for me because he never made me feel like a question I was asking was too small or too basic. The developer we had on our team, Jackson Sanchez, he was also an amazing person who really took the time to, like, let's stop a meeting if we throw a term that's difficult to understand, and let's make sure Denise gets this term. And they were really empathetic towards me and my level of experience. And so that made really all the difference because I was able to bring that advertising background. I was able to ask every question I had without being made feel that I was asking too many questions or that I was asking questions that I should already have the answer to, and then Uxcel became my go-to tool also, not just to learn how to do the job, but also to stop asking so many questions. Because eventually I grew to that point of comfort where I could be on a meeting and people would be like, okay, fine, we're going to work on the new onboarding for the app. And I would be like, okay, sure, we're going to do the new onboarding on the app. And I would have no idea what that meant. But I would go out of the meeting and just open Uxcel and search onboarding and just look at the little course, the little bit of information about onboarding and the examples. And that became like the way I started using Uxcel to become more comfortable looking for information for myself, by myself, and not just relying on asking every single thing. Uxcel was really great on helping me understand not just basic concepts, but really giving me the language to be able to understand all the conversations happening around me. Because like I said, I already had like writing skills. I already had strategic thinking skills. I'm someone that's not afraid to ask questions, and whether it's about something I don't know or whether it's about questioning an idea or an initiative we're thinking about, but really I had incredible advocates and I had access to a really great tool. And I think that's what really made me stand out, because very quickly I was able to not just sit and listen during meetings, but also be able to speak out and be like, okay, but what do you think about this perspective on this issue? Or how about we do this way? Because I just learned something similar that can work for this situation. And that really allowed me to make contributions to the team. But then also, as I mentioned, I had a great team, but I also had great leaders. And people like Eduardo Kang and Jose Grau, they really were people that became advocates for me. And they not only showed me the ropes, and they not only guided me through the things I didn't know how to navigate, but they actually made sure my contributions were being visible. They actually started having those conversations that made the impact of the work I'm doing visible to stakeholders and people who actually make decisions in the company. So that was really actually how it happened. It was a lot of teamwork. It was a lot of effort on my part just to learn, but having a great team was actually a part of it.
I love that fact that you mentioned all those external factors as well, like having a good appreciative team that understands that you are not coming from the same background and that you might take some time to learn stuff and catch up is very important. And I think that we talked about having advocates and making people your advocates in the company a very important part of your career journey, especially as you work with a lot of people. But I would like to hear more about things that you've done that you made them your advocates. They didn't just start believing in you with no reason at all. So you said that you would go back and forth and maybe search the terms in Uxcel. Are there any other things that you did to upskill yourself and fast track this this advocacy for you and everything that you received as support?
Yeah, just really getting my hands in everything I could. That's why I mentioned the great team I had, because they actually gave me the opportunity to be involved in a lot of different projects, and they trusted me to be capable to even lead some conversations and some initiatives around those projects. So for instance, last year, we changed our account setup flow. It used to be a web flow, and we turned it into an in-app experience.
Mhm.
And I was trusted with taking this project with a content first approach. So I was actually able to take the lead and make a lot of decisions about how this flow was gonna go. And then everyone else was also involved in the project, and it became a very collaborative process. But like I said, I actually had these opportunities to lead some projects and put my ideas on the front and participate in a way where I'm not just someone that's writing copy for certain screens, but I'm someone that's actively giving ideas and giving her opinion on certain things. One of the things that I know my team and my leads appreciated about me was actually the fact that I ask a lot of questions, was that nature of questioning things and not just trying to find a quick answer,
Hmm.
but finding the right questions for what needs to be done.
So you would say that curiosity maybe was one of the driving factors
Yeah, for
in
sure. Yeah, for sure. I'm someone that genuinely wants to learn, and I think that enthusiasm showed. I think that's what really convinced people. Like, she may not know everything now, but you can trust that you can put a challenge in front of her, and she's gonna find a way to figure it out and overcome it and give a great result. You know, and that, I think that's really what helped me stand out. That curiosity allowed me, like I said, to not be just the person that writes nice copy,
yeah.
not just be the person that it's getting how UX writing is done, but also it's getting how UX design is working, and it's thinking a little bit more strategically. um, and I think that collaboration with the team also made a big impact, because collaboration is a really big deal in our company. And I think the fact that I was able to collaborate with different um, people with different skills also showed.
Yeah, I can definitely see that collaboration, and having a good environment there help, because I can see a lot of your colleagues are here with us in the comments as well. So, no, that's it's really wonderful when you can find that sort of environment, on the first go. But um, what's really interesting is that you started out as a freelancer, and we know, like, when you're a freelancer or contractor at a firm, you do have a hard time standing out. And you just said that you were giving a trust to take on different projects, to lead initiatives, to put your word out there. Now you are working full time, right?
Yes.
Congrats. So how did this transition go? How were you able to secure yourself a full-time position?
Okay, so like from the minute I started as a freelance, I actually made it really clear to my leadership that I wanted a full-time position.
Mhm.
That was never something that I took lightly, and that was never something that I kept to myself. From the minute I started working as a freelance, I started having conversations that could guide me towards how do I land this full-time position. And that's why I say that really I had advocates, and I had people mentoring me, because I was able to um, negotiate quite easily this hiring process. It wasn't really even a negotiation. It As soon as the position opened up, they trusted that I could breeze through the interviews and all of the tests that are mandatory to enter a company as big as Banco Guayaquil, But like I said, I had people advocating for me from the start and bringing my accomplishments to the stakeholders. And I was also making sure that the results were good. And they weren't going like, hey, she's really cool and she has a great spirit. I actually gave them merits to talk about, look at the work Denise is producing. And I'm supposed to be this junior freelancer who's coming in without knowing anything, but I was able to make myself noticeable, like you said, and that secured that position. So as soon as the position opened up, it was like a no-brainer that that position was really for me. um, and once I got the position, it was really an easy conversation to negotiate salaries, to make our VP who makes the decision understand why I want maybe a different salary than what was offered at first, or maybe why I am on this path of growth that I see for myself, and I want him to think of me when those positions open up. And those are conversations that I think are important to have all the time while you're on a career building journey. I don't think you only need to have the conversation when the position opens up. Like if I waited for the position to open up to say, hey, you know what, I want to be hired formally, maybe they would have considered a lot of other people. Maybe someone with more experience than me would have come along, but I think you need to have those conversations every step of the way and kind of know where you want to go so that you can guide the accomplishments that you are having in a way that actually helps you. Because if you just let the work do the talking, which is something that I think a lot of us tend to do, the work can just say, this person is really good at doing this.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really necessarily move you to other opportunities. You have to be very vocal about what you want and what you think you can accomplish. And I've tried to be very vocal about that. So yeah, I think that's how the full-time position came to be. Just me being very vocal about what I want and about what I need, and also having the merits to back it up.
And how did you prove the results? What data did you use, like from work results to maybe even like your personal growth, professional growth? How did you show your management that, hey, I think I'm actually ready to take on this?
Yeah, like I said, on our team, there's a lot of feedback constantly. So it wasn't really a moment of, hey, can I talk to you? These are the accomplishments I have, and I want to talk to you about this. It was more of different conversations along the way, you know? And yeah, I used everything that I could to prove my worth, actually. Whenever I took an initiative and there was data that backed up a result of my writing, I would immediately start having conversations about that. Whenever I was trusted with a project, I would make sure that people knew that I was in charge of that project. And of course, sharing credit with the team, because I wouldn't have been able to accomplish anything without the amazing team I had and the amazing team I have right now, which is a different team. I mean, at a different team than the one I started with. But it was really those conversations along the way of showing, hey, look, this is how my Uxcel score is growing. Hey, we did the certification as a team. We all did it at the same time. So we really applied ourselves to studying and getting that certification and making sure that our team of UX writers is a very professional team, So it wasn't really one single conversation. It was a bunch of different conversations just talking about, hey, I read this book and I have these ideas. What do you think about these ideas? And having the chance to implement those ideas. It was just having conversations about, hey, I took this Uxcel course about notifications, and I think we could use these strategies to improve the strategy that we already have. And just having these conversations on a daily basis, more than just waiting for a specific moment to kind of bring out the spreadsheet and go like, this is why I deserve to be hired, or this is why I deserve a raise.
Yeah.
I don't really believe it works like that. I believe it's an effort that you have to make day to day. You have to prove your worth day to day. And the results that you bring to the table are what matter. And so, as long as you're showing effort on your day to day and you're getting those results at the end of the sprint or at the end of the quarter or whatever, there's not much that needs to be said. Those conversations are already being had on a daily basis.
Kind of playing like the long game.
Yeah,
Yes.
I always play the long game. I always think life is a long game. You know, nothing happens by accident, and nothing happens quickly or easily. You have to build yourself up, even when you're switching careers. You have to build yourself up to show the best skills that you can bring to the table. You have to build yourself up to show that you're capable of learning the skills that you don't have already. You have to build yourself up to not be afraid to say the wrong thing. You know, that was something that for maybe the first few months was something that was always in the back of my head. Like, am I actually saying the right things here? Like, am I actually making the right contributions here? And that's why I say I had great mentors, because people like Eduardo Kang, people like Jose Grau, people like Diana Tanner, they were really, really, really great to have those conversations, like in the hallway. Just have a quick conversation, like, am I doing things right? Yeah, you're doing things right. Here's a place where you could maybe improve, or here's an opportunity you should watch out for. And just have those people know that you want better things is what makes them want to advocate for you.
Yeah. And that's super important actually to mention. Um, I think that we forgot that building a case for yourself, it comes like it doesn't just come from today to tomorrow when you know you have a meeting, and you know it should be for a longer time. It should be a dedicated effort every day, a little bit working on it, talking to people, talking about yourself, advocating for yourself so that other people can advocate for you. You know, you also mentioned like you guys track your progress regularly, you show it on the skill graph.
Yeah.
So you know there are different things that you can do to set the foundation for the conversation that you know when it comes you are already prepared for it. So I assume there wasn't any initial pushback to like full-time position, or you know you just said you've moved into another team as well. So what was it, an easy smooth
Yeah,
sailing?
there was no pushback at all. Like I said, I was able to um, let decision makers know that I want bigger challenges and that I feel ready for bigger challenges. And that's where those advocates come handy, because they can actually say, you know what, yes, we've seen her work and we've seen that she can actually take on bigger challenges, you know? And so our bank is going through a process of digital transformation. Our VP, Jorge Hurtado, is really a visionary, and he has this really big vision for our company. And there's a lot of change going on. And so I think about 3 months ago, I was moved to a different team, a team that's just starting its UX journey. It's a team that it's going through that digital transformation process for the first time. And I remember, like, as soon as they told me you're moving to this new team, again, I had this conversation with my leadership, and I asked, okay, what's expected of me in this new role? Like, how can I make the biggest contribution or the biggest impact while being in this role? And that's when I learned that I was trusted with sharing the UX culture that we had on that team that I initiated with to this new team. So my role is now to become that person that answers questions for other people and to guide people to advocate for themselves and to learn the skills that they need to learn to grow in this new user-centered mindset, which is completely new when you're going through a digital transformation process, you know? And I think that's part of it. That's part of how you make yourself stand out. It's also asking your leadership the right questions and asking what's expected of you so that you know exactly what results you're supposed to deliver. I am pretty sure that I can do a good job because I know what people are expecting of me. Otherwise, I'm just throwing darts in the air and seeing what lands, seeing what sticks, and it doesn't really work like that, you know? To be able to build a case for yourself and to be able to say, hey, I did this and this matters, you have to be sure that it matters.
Yeah.
You have to be sure that that was the right thing to focus your energy and your effort on. Otherwise, you can put your energy and effort into a lot of different tasks, and that's not going to get you noticed.
A few really great points there. And, I think that having said this, like the whole, having heard, or sorry, not said, having heard the whole story from start to right now, it's incredible that you moved in from like a total beginner. But, we're talking about like some transferable skills were there. We have to admit that. But from a total beginner in UX to now leading a team to adopt UX. And I think it's really, really, really incredible. So I think a very inspiring story. But do you think that now looking back at everything, that there was something that you maybe would have done differently when you just started thinking about breaking into UX?
Yeah, well, I think the one thing I would have done differently was doing it sooner.
Mhm.
I think I
Okay.
spent too much time second guessing myself. And I think I could have just taken that leap earlier. And I think really that's the only thing that I would have done differently because the journey that's taking me to where I am today, um, I'm working with great leads and I have a responsibility that's been entrusted to me. And I have a job to do, I have a mission to accomplish, you know? Um, and that has happened quite quickly. And like you said, I use those transferable skills. I use that curiosity to
Yeah.
learn the new skills I needed. I advocated for myself. And so looking back, I was like, you did that. You did that on your own. You did that like based on who you are and based on what you've learned and what's brought you this far. And so the only thing I would have done differently would have really doing it sooner, just second guessing myself a lot less and trusting that I can switch careers and that I can learn new skills. And like you said, start out as a beginner without feeling bad about it.
That's cool. That's very nice. And we we see a lot of imposter syndrome with people who make the leap,
Mhm.
and I can safely perhaps assume that what prolonged your pivoting into this position was maybe being afraid that maybe you won't be able to do it. So how did you handle that with yourself?
Yeah, well, imposter syndrome, of course, I think that's the thing that stopped me from taking the leap earlier. Just not being sure if I can actually succeed as much as I've succeeded in these 12 years in advertising in a new career. But like you said, like throwing myself into this idea of being a beginner actually was quite freeing. I remember like the first few months of working as a UX writer, I remember having conversations with my husband and with friends and just talking about how good it feels to have a team that knows that I'm on a learning curve, and they don't expect me to have all the answers right now. They expect me to be willing to learn. They expect me to have a good attitude about things. And as long as I have that, I'm good. And actually, it was really freeing, feeling like a junior again, like
Yeah.
leaving that seniority that I had built on advertising behind, and just understanding that, yes, I am in front of maybe an empty slate, but I can put any color I want. And that was really, really freeing. That allowed me to put the pressure, to take that pressure off and
Yeah.
just put it aside, and just trust that right now I'm learning progress, and whoever doesn't understand that I'm on a learning progress, they're the ones that are wrong, not me. you know
Obviously.
and yeah, so it was quite freeing. But I'm not gonna lie, imposter syndrome is something that is always there. I think it's something that, whenever you are in a creative field, or it's impossible to escape it. It just doesn't go away. But you have to learn to manage it every time it creeps in. You have to learn to tune that voice out that says, what if I can't? And
Hmm.
just really ignored it, and trust that if you put the effort, you can do things that you haven't done before. I actually, through this switch career, I learned to love the concept of being an amateur, of just learning things because you love learning, and just having that attitude of, I don't know everything, I have a lot to learn still, and I can learn it.
That's really good also for handling like perfectionism, especially, starting starting something again, or something new
Mhm.
can, yeah, it feels intimidating. It feels like, oh, I don't know stuff, so I have to work on it. So, there are two ways you can take it. You can take it the curiosity way, like, I'm curious about it, let me learn. I have the will, I have what it takes to learn. Or, you can be pressured down by that, crazy expectations that you put on yourself, like you have to be perfect at it as well. So I love that approach. I love the approach of taking it like, okay, I'm a junior, so I can act as a junior, I can learn as a
Make
junior.
mistakes, I can learn, I can ask questions. Nobody expects me to have the right answers right now. Maybe
Exactly.
now, a year later, people expect me to have some answers. But at the beginning, that was very freeing. Yeah.
Very nice. Before I ask you one last question I have from my side, I would love to remind everyone who are watching us live that we have an upcoming Q&A session. You are free to post your questions from Denise, and we will get to it in a few moments. But Denise, my last question is, I always ask whoever comes here for one last piece of advice. So if somebody, and I think that a lot of people who are going to watch this are, in the same mindset, maybe, or on the same path as you were, thinking about breaking into UX, or trying to break into UX, being that they're total beginners or career transitioners, can we say that? We're both non-native speakers, so it doesn't matter, right? Transitioning their careers, or moving from, trying to make themselves stand out as a freelancer. We know it's super hard right now, especially, getting from a contractor role to a full-time. What's the one most important piece of advice that you would tell them?
Um, I think it's kind of a twofold advice. It kind of has two parts. The first part is actually an advice I gave to a friend a couple of days ago, because he saw I was going to give this webinar, and he was like, I want to talk to you about this career switching idea. And the advice I gave to him, and I think it's an advice that applies to a lot of people, is find that why you want to switch careers. Find that north that's going to guide you, because you don't want to switch careers just to escape a job you don't like. You don't want to switch careers just to get away from something. You want to switch careers to find a path that truly excites you. If you want to switch careers, that's the reason you need to find that why you're doing it. Figure out what motivates you. Don't just switch careers because you think another career is going to be easier, or because you think you're maybe going to be more successful, or because you think maybe it's the up and coming industry that's going to be the next big thing. But find that why. What's missing from the career you have now? Why you need that? Okay. And the second advice I would have, and I think it's something that I've mentioned a lot of times during this conversation, is believe in your ability to learn. You know, we can all learn things. And I think there's a point in our lives as adults where we kind of convince ourselves that it's harder to learn new things. And that was one of the things that stopped me. That was part of my imposter syndrome, let's say, before I took that leap of faith. And the way I worked through it was actually through my hobbies. I was actually going to ceramics class and learning how to embroider and learning how to sew, and learning different recipes that I'd never prepared before. And through those tiny activities, I reinforced the idea of myself that I got to the point where I am back then in advertising, you know, through hard work and through learning. And those tiny activities reminded me you can learn new skills. You just have to dedicate some time to it. You just have to practice certain things, but you can learn a lot of new skills. And that and the sunken cost fallacy just made the right merge in my mind. And that's what actually helped me take that first step. So again, the advice would be just find that why you want to switch careers, and believe that you can start out as a beginner and learn on the go, and trust your ability to learn, because we all can learn.
That's some wonderful advice, actually. Thank you so much. And thank you for answering all of my questions today. I will put up a banner for those who want to drop their questions. They can do it now. And I will go back to some of the first questions we got. Gotta bring them up on the screen. Okay, so did networking play a big role in landing your first job, or was it more about applying the traditional way?
A little bit of both. I mean, I will say that I knew some people that worked at Banco Guayaquil before I applied. But like I said, I applied the first time for the freelancing position and I didn't get picked because there was someone else who had more experience than me and they were a better fit for the role at that time. But just by going through that interview process and making myself available and asking for feedback after I was rejected, you know, that really, I think, shaped the opportunity so that when the next position opened up, I was still in the consideration list, you know. So yes, networking helps a lot. Having people that know you and that can give good references about you will definitely help. But also just applying and not being afraid of maybe not having every single qualification that a job posting asks for, but having, again, the trust that you can learn that on the way and just taking that leap of faith.
Thank you. And thank you, Cesar, for the question. One question from LinkedIn. Here we have, how did you deal with the first rejection? You kind of answered a little bit, but
Yeah.
maybe tell us more.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it did crush me a little at first because I really wanted this career switch. I had already set up my mind that I wanted a career switch and that career switch was towards UX writing. So when I got that first interview, I was really excited. And then when I didn't get it, I was pretty crushed. But I understood, I understood I wasn't ready and I still needed to learn a few other things. And that's why I asked for feedback. And the person that interviewed me actually sent me an email and said, well, we can tell that you have extensive knowledge in marketing and in advertising. But for this position, we needed someone that had a little more experience in UX. And what that told me was start learning right now. This is the time when you pick up some books and you learn a little and you read a little about the things you don't know. And I started using Uxcel, like the free courses, to at least prepare myself for looking for that next opportunity. I wasn't sure, and I didn't know that the next opportunity was going to come from the same place. But I knew that I wanted an opportunity as a UX writer. And that rejection actually, yes, it hurt, but it actually allowed me to understand you really want this.
Yes.
That feeling of hurt was what actually made me understand the reason why this hurts. It's because I actually really, really want this. And so I need to make myself more prepared for the time another opportunity comes my way.
Painful realization, but a good confirmation that it is exactly what you want to do.
Frustration can be a fuel. It doesn't have to be something that weighs you down. Frustration can be used as fuel.
Definitely. And thank you, Vasilena, for the question. We have from Ryan, and I also wanted to ask this. So the position you saw, was it asking for somebody who is a junior or beginner, or how did it go? Because yeah, as Ryan says here, UI UX projects mostly from companies, and they tend to ask for more experienced designers. So was this position for freelance for beginner, or maybe for somebody more experienced?
The first opening I applied to was for someone more experienced, and like I said, that's who they hired. But the second position, they were open to maybe having someone who has a little less experience and might need to do a little more shadowing, But maybe it's something that's very specific to my country. But here in Ecuador, we don't have a lot of UX writers. There's no school to go to learn UX writing. It's not a career that's super popular. And so I think most companies in Ecuador that have UX writers have that mentality that we have to train people to do this job. They might come from journalism or they might come from advertising, such as myself, but they tend to look for people who have experience in writing and have a good disposition to learn, because there aren't many UX writers that you can just ask to have prior experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna really complicate your search here a lot. But I think for other markets where maybe UX is more developed, and I would say just look at the job posting to figure out if it's for yourself. And like I said, maybe don't get hung up if you don't have every single requirement. Make sure that you believe that you can actually do the job and take that leap of faith. And maybe sometimes recruiters take that into account and they look at your CV and they look at your resume and they go, well, this person doesn't have the experience that we expected, but they can bring something else to the table. And that's when an interview becomes crucial, because that's when you actually have the chance to advocate for yourself and speak about what you can make as a contribution to this company if they hire you, even though you might not have every single skill and competency that's required right now.
Okay, so it wasn't so easy finding a beginner position at first, but there are options. But I like the fact that you also mentioned it depends also on the market and where you're at. One other question that we have is, what skills from your previous job have you found the most valuable in your new career?
Well, of course, the copywriting skills, but also I think coming from advertising, I mentioned I was able to work with a lot of different industries. And that gave me a good understanding of strategic business thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I worked in advertising, but I was always like that strategic copywriter that knows how to turn an idea into sales. Okay, so I was able to understand business through my advertising experience. And that is actually one of the things that I think helped me the most at Banco Guayaquil, was understanding not only that empathy part that you learn through UX research, because you talk to users and you learn their needs, and you know what you need to do with the product to satisfy their needs, but also having that business intelligence to understand what's important to stakeholders. You know, what projects are they passionate about? What results are they actually seeking? You know, so I think from advertising, I took a lot of skills and transferred them to this position. But I think that business intelligence and that mind for strategy was one of the things that actually helped me move strategically and understand what I could do to stand out.
Thank you. And thank you for the question, Poligalito. I'm not sure of the exact username, but we have a few more questions and we still have time, so I will pop them up on the screen. This is an interesting one, so more a personal one. But how do you see your role as a UX writer evolving at Banco Guayaquil?
Well, that's a really interesting question, really, because I think that I would like to evolve my role maybe a little bit outside of just writing, and maybe taking a more holistic approach to UX design. So the idea of product designer is something that is really interesting in my mind right now. I think I have a good mind for strategy, and I think that could be really useful for me in that aspect. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can about the business and about how to make the more strategic decisions and about how to analyze data. And I'm trying to like build those skills up so that in time, like I said, I'm playing the long game here. In time, be able to prove contributions not only in the realm of writing, but also in the realm of product designing and making the decisions that make products successful. But like I said, it's a long game. So right now, I'm really just trying to build those skills and find the opportunities to put them to use.
Great, and it's great to like a great thing to know that UX writing doesn't really have to stop at UX writing, and there are other things you can explore.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maria, for the question, and we have a few more left from Shane. So, how to get good portfolio projects when you don't have a full-time UX role? Were you giving them any portfolios before you got the job, or how did it go?
Before I got the job, no, I didn't have a UX portfolio at all. Like I said, that's why I'm really thankful that they took a chance on me, because I didn't have a portfolio of work. I hadn't done any work in UX writing. But as soon as I got the job, one of the things that I did start doing was working on the side with, I mentioned them, William Cochea and Jackson Sanchez. And we started like building our own little project and our own little app of drinking games. And so we started this side project in order to be able to start building a portfolio in the meantime while I work towards building the portfolio from the bank, because that's actually going to take a lot more time. You know, in our little happy hour app, we could make all of the decisions, you know, and we could schedule our releases whenever we wanted. Working at a bank, there's a lot more process, and sometimes projects take a longer time to go out. And I think that's always something that makes building a portfolio a little hard, that you have to dedicate those months of working and documenting your work so that 6 months later, 9 months later, when this big project is finally what it's meant to be and it's giving the results that it's meant to be giving, you can actually go back to everything you did and build up a solid case. But like I said, when you're not working full time, and even when you're working full time, it takes a long time to build that portfolio of real experiences. And so I think what you can do is on the side, find some friends, find some people that also want to get a head start, or move up on their careers in design or in um, development, whatever, software development, and just make a little team that you can dedicate a few hours after your regular job to building something that you can show to the world quickly and put in your portfolio as different things that you can do.
Okay, so finding some extra time to do it, but also it's important here to note that you didn't have to have a prepared portfolio when you got the job.
Yeah.
And maybe in the cases where it is required, you'll have to maybe do you can do design
Project.
groups, you can do side projects, you can volunteer, you can get other even like make your own passion project and
Yeah.
build a portfolio around it. So there are different ways you can do it, but I really like the fact that you said that when you got the job you were like, okay, now I have to build a portfolio and do something about it and show off my skills. Great advice there as well. One last question before we have to unfortunately end the session is from Ike, and I think it kind of ties into what you already were talking about. But do you maybe have any other tips that you would have for negotiating salary benefits during and after the hiring process?
I think something that's always good is to negotiate from a position of strength. Always base your negotiation on what you bring to the table, whether it's skills, whether it's accomplishments, whether it's results, whether it's just eagerness to learn. Whatever it is that you can bring to the table, that's what you use to negotiate your salary. You never want to negotiate your salary from a position of need. We all always need to earn a little bit more money. That happens to all of us. But you don't want to approach this conversation from your needs, but more from what you can. The word went away from me. What you can bring to the table, what you can, the results that you can actually help this company achieve. And I actually like, before I interview for positions, I always like to do a little list about that, a list of skills that I know that are important and a list of accomplishments, whether they're from the past or they're recent, but just have those things handy so that when people say, this is the salary that we have, are you okay with it? If you want to negotiate a better salary, you already have those arguments nearby and ready, and you don't have to think it through in that moment. Because I think from past experiences, I can say whenever I've had to negotiate my salary, maybe when I was starting out in advertising and I was a lot more inexperienced, I would approach the conversation with uncertainty, with the uncertainty of whether I'm going to get this increase of salary or not. And at some point in my career, I started approaching it as a conversation of what I deserve. A conversation of, this is what I have done, and these are my results, and these are my skills, and this is the potential that I believe I have. And that's when assertive communication comes really in handy, just being able to make other people trust and believe in yourself as much as you believe in yourself, But yeah, negotiating salaries is hard. Just always make sure that you have something that you can use in your favor to negotiate it.
Really good. And I like the fact that you mentioned it should not come from a place of need and uncertainty, more about trusting yourself and then saying, hey, this is how I can contribute.
Yeah.
Thank you, Denise. That kind of brings us to the end of today's session. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us here today, sharing your story. inspired me. It reminded me and uplifted me a little bit more to own up to my skills and to show it and to be loud about it. So really, really great advice. To everyone else who joined us today, thank you so much for being so active, and thank you for asking so many questions. You will receive the recording of the session in your inbox just in a few minutes, so you can always revisit it later. If you enjoyed today's discussion, if you want to stay connected to Denise, there is her link to her LinkedIn on the Luma page for the event, so feel free to check it out. It will also be in the follow-up email, so if you want, you can always connect with her. And again, if you enjoyed the session, maybe you want to check out our other events. So you can check out our Luma calendar anytime, and all of the upcoming sessions will be there. Denise, thank you once again. Is there anything else that you would like to say to everyone before we head off?
Well, really, first, just thank you all for inviting me. It's been really a pleasure to talk about this journey and maybe sharing some tidbits of information that can be inspiring to other people. I'm really thankful for the people that connected to this webinar and heard me out. And I think really, if you're ready for a career switch and you feel it in your bones, just trust it and go for it. And the worst thing that can happen is you have to learn a lot of things really, really, really quick.
Fair enough.
I think whenever you are completely decided to have a career switch, you can't second guess it anymore. You have to just lean into it and give in to the idea of being a beginner again.
Really great. Thank you so much. And yeah, hope you all have a great rest of the day, and see you in the next webinar.
Thank you so much. Bye.